Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. This is Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Mentor Select serves parents who are raising teens. Every week, Derek interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. All while parenting them to be successful adults, focusing on social and emotional development, something that's left out of the classroom, but not in ours. Be sure to subscribe, share, and rate. This is Mentor Select, and this is your host, Derek Phillips.
Welcome, parents. Today you're in for a great treat today. Normally, I have a guest that I interview that shares tips, strategies, and resources to prepare your teens to be successful adults. But with election less than 2 weeks away, I want to take this opportunity to share with you all some tips, strategies, and resources that you can help your teens to get involved in politics or just have a better understanding of the importance of their vote, especially if they're turning 18. You may have some teens that are voting for the first time this year, and that's a really exciting experience for them. So I just wanted to give you all a few tips just to help that experience be a pleasant experience for them, because in this highly polarized political climate that we're in, especially in a presidential election year, it can get pretty ugly out there. And I'm sure many of you all have seen it. I'm sure your teens have seen it as well on social media and just maybe amongst their friends. We want to make sure that our teens are prepared to have those conversations in a civil manner. Also have a great appreciation of why their vote counts and why it's important in a democracy to cast your vote to elect officials to represent you and your community, whatever groups you identify with. So let's get into it. These are the top 3 things as parents that you can do to get your teens excited about voting, just really active in the political process. Number 1, I think, is to educate your teens on the historical battles that have been fought in the United States for women and minorities to get voting rights. Let them know that how today, where everyone can vote, but historically in the United States, minorities couldn't vote, women could not vote, only white men had the privilege of voting. And help them understand how women and minorities had to fight, and some even died to get the right to vote, and why it was so important for them. I think when teens have an understanding of everything that went into for everyone to vote in the United States, for everyone to be equal, for their voices to be heard, then that would encourage them and help them understand that voting is our civic duty. It's not a right to be taken for granted, because, so many people have fought and died for that right, for us to have the right to vote. And to not vote is really to disrespect all of the sacrifices that people made, our ancestors and all those warriors, what I call them. So giving your teens that historical perspective, it's my hopes that, it will make them have a greater value and understanding on just how significant it is for them to vote, for them to be active in the political process. And that leads me to number 2. As I mentioned earlier, this certainly any presidential year is going to be really polarizing and just a lot of negativity, even with starting with the campaigns, launching negative ads, and then once you get into the discussions on social media and conversations with your friends and family, depending on where they stand politically, it can get really ugly. And I think it's important for parents to help their teens avoid the falling into the trap of confirmation bias. And what I mean by that is if you surround yourself with people that only think the way that you think, people that share your same values, beliefs, political affiliations, that's the only news that you consume, the only media, everything is one-sided, then it's going to shape your perspective of the world. It's going to make you think that everyone thinks the way you think, everyone shares your political views, and anytime you're confronted with someone that has a different viewpoint, it's going to kind of be a shock to your teen system. So you want to encourage your teens to actually listen to the other side, actually expose themselves to a diversity of thought, a diversity of viewpoints. They don't have to accept those viewpoints as truths, but understand that essentially perception is reality. So not to just automatically dismiss someone's viewpoint because it differs from their own. We all have ideologies and life experiences that shapes our worldview. And that's going to vary depending on how you're raised, where you're raised, what you consume, how you're conditioned. So I think it really serves teens if parents help them understand that and help them realize that not everyone thinks the same. Even if they're the same color, they may have a different background and they're not limited to just a single track of thought. I know personally for me, my viewpoints have evolved over the years, especially from the time I was a teen till now. And I think it's really important for teens to understand that you really have to be inclusive. You really want to hear different points of view and not just be limited to what's in your environment, what's in your immediate surrounding, and not limit yourself to varying points of view. This really is going to serve them throughout their lives. It really is going to prepare them to be successful adults, because in the workplace, in college, in all aspects of society, they're going to encounter people who look differently than them, think differently than them, and that's fine. By helping them understand that now through the political process, it truly is going to prepare them to be successful adults. So that leads me to the third tip for helping teens really enjoy this political process, get involved, and understand the true value of voting. And that is learning to agree to disagree. That really ties into the confirmation bias, where when your teens encounter someone who disagrees with them, who shares different values, different beliefs, different viewpoints, then they can have that open discussion, exchange ideas, not trying to necessarily change that person's mind, but really listening to different sides and getting insight, but ultimately knowing that, hey, we can agree to disagree. And what I mean by that is it's not about changing someone's mind. It's about listening to their ideas, being respectful, being respectful and listening to your ideas. And at the end of the conversation, nothing changes. You just have greater insight. You're not necessarily, it's not a win-loss. It's not a me versus you, or if you don't think the way I think, then you're wrong. I think that type of viewpoint is counterproductive to meaningful conversations, to fostering meaningful relationships. So if parents can really help their teens understand that it's important to be respectful, and it's important to hear where people are coming from, because you actually can learn something, even if they're completely polar opposites of themselves or what you think. It will help you just be more well-rounded, more diverse. I had the experience at age 18 of being stationed in Germany. And that was really a culture shock for me, going from Gary, Indiana to another country. But being exposed in an environment where, okay, now my viewpoints, now my background, now my culture is the minority, I had to assimilate. I had to really understand and appreciate and respect the country that I was in, their customs, traditions, and values, and learn to communicate with people who thought differently than me and have a fruitful, respectful conversation. So that's one of the most valuable skills that I think parents can foster and help their teens develop, because that truly is it gives you a competitive advantage as a person, because you're able to adapt to different environments and fit in wherever you are. still holding your own truths and beliefs. So I think that's really important. So just to recap, the top 3 tips that parents can share with their teens to help them have a better understanding of the political process, have a good experience, and hopefully for those teens that are 18 this year to actually vote for the first time is number 1, just help them understand the historical importance of voting, help them understand all the sacrifices that those before us made in order to give everyone the right to vote, everyone being able to have a voice in our great democracy. The second one is to help your teen avoid the trap of confirmation bias, to welcome various viewpoints and be able to have respectful conversations. And leads me to the third one, agree to disagree. When they're having those conversations, and hopefully it's fruitful and respectful. But at the end of the day, once you're finished with that conversation, you still can be friends. You still can agree to disagree. Having understanding that is such an advantage. It'll help your teens avoid so much stress and possibly destroying relationships as a result of disagreeing, having the ability to agree to disagree. So the 3 valuable tips that I wanted to share with you all today. And I just hope that your teens really get active in the political process, whatever that may look like, whether it's volunteering at polls, whether it's potentially pursuing a political career, or even it's just voting. That is such a fundamental right of citizens in the United States that they shouldn't take for granted. There are many countries where their citizens don't have the right to vote, or they're still fighting for their right to vote. And we really should be thankful for all of the freedoms that we have here in the United States and continue to fight to secure those freedoms. A couple weeks away from the election. So just give you those tips. I'll be back next week with another guest.
You've been listening to Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Hosted by Derrich Phillips. Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. We get it. That's why Derrich interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. That's why we do the show. Be sure to share Mentor Select with other parents of teens. Follow us on social media at Mentor Select to stay up to date on the latest tips, strategies, and resources for parenting teens. Send your questions and comments to Derrich@mentorselect.com. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes. Till next time, this is Mentor Select.